Hey guys, welcome or welcome back. We're doing your full moon horoscope for the full moon in Aquarius happening on Monday, August 19th, 2024 at 2:26 p.m. Eastern. That is 11:26 a.m. Pacific time, and later on in the evening and afternoon if you're on the other side of the world. I hope you guys have been hanging in there over the past week, because the astrology of the past week and last few weeks really has been quite intense, and it's just been intensifying even more so as we prepare to go into the craziest full moon of the astrological year, in my opinion. We have a lot going on for this full moon. We have two T-squares happening, one with the sun and the moon making a square, both making a square to Uranus and Taurus at 27 degrees. It's a very tight orb. It's literally exact. And then we also have a T-square between Venus and Saturn in opposition, making a square to Jupiter and Mars in Gemini. Over the past week, we've had Mars and Jupiter that came together for their conjunction in Gemini, and at the same time, we had Mercury retrograde back into Leo, making an inconjunction to Pluto, as well as making a square to Uranus. And at the same time, we've had Jupiter and Mars in their conjunctions squaring down to Saturn and Pisces. So yes, the energy has been very intense, to say the least, and it's going to continue to intensify. Now, when I say intense, that doesn't necessarily mean bad. It just depends on, of course, your personal chart. Look to see where this is happening in your chart, where specifically 27 degrees of Aquarius is in your chart, where the house of Aquarius is, where the house of Leo is in your chart, and where the house of Taurus is. Those are going to be the three houses in the three signs that are going to be feeling this energy the most, as well as, of course, Scorpio placements in the later degrees around 27 degrees. A little bit about Aquarius. Aquarius is the 11th sign of the zodiac. It is represented by the water bearer, and it is fixed air. It corresponds to the 11th house, which in traditional medieval astrology, Hellenistic astrology, this would be considered the house of hopes and wishes, sometimes our friends. And in more modern times, this can really be a house that is represented by the future. It's very Uranian in nature. Of course, the ruling planets for Aquarius are Saturn and Uranus, the modern ruler, Saturn being the traditional ruler. The water bearer is eternally giving life and food and spiritual wisdom to the world. The water vessel that you see the water bearer pouring is essentially washing away the past and giving us room for the future with divine wisdom in mind. Aquarius is the revolutionary, the rebel, the truth-sayer, and the humanitarian. You can think of Aquarius traits as being innovative, very intelligent, very rebellious, very future-oriented, unconventional, eccentric, analytical, non-conforming, stubborn, sometimes seen as a bit distant. Also, people will say weird or strange. It's really the energy of the group, the community. It is about the people, whereas Leo is about the self, the heart. You can definitely expect very strong emotions to be present around the time of this full moon in Aquarius. I would say this collectively, first and foremost, because Aquarius is a collective sign. It deals with the people, and this is a full moon. That said, it is, of course, going to be more prominent for you if you have heavy fixed sign placements, specifically if you have planets on the Leo-Aquarius axis. But if you have any fixed sign placements, you are going to feel this a little bit more. Full moons are essentially the culmination point of the lunation cycle, right? So things are at an all-time high. I am not typically an astrologer that will advocate the full moon as being a release point, although this energy, there is an energy of needing to release something because we are looking towards the future, and in turn, we need to shed the past. Remember that Pluto is getting ready to ingress back into Capricorn for the very last time on September 1st. That is coming up quickly. This is the beginning of the end, literally. This full moon is not messing around, and I don't say that to scare you, but it is a very transformative energy if you can work with the energy and be willing to be a little bit flexible. We have the T-square in the fixed signs, and fixed energy doesn't want to change. It's very, very stubborn. So we need to budge on something, some sort of pattern in our life. I think this is going to be a very illuminating full moon, not only for us as individuals in our personal lives, but also on a collective level. This full moon is on the exact degree point of the US's moon at 27 degrees of Aquarius. So this is also happening in the US's third house. And we will get into that probably further on in the video, but the third house is the house of communication, the news, it's information. So I wouldn't be surprised if something comes out in the media around this time in regards to the United States. This is a huge collective shift and shedding, for that matter. It's also a very big transformative energy, and you're going to be forced into some form of transformation. Whether you're willing to budge and transform or not, you're going to be pushed to do that. And how easy this transformation is going to depend on if you're willing to let something go, to shed something. Aquarius is an energy of teamwork, collaboration, community, friends, giving, service, your purpose in the world. And it's not necessarily the purpose you make money from, although they can correlate, but the 10th and 11th houses in your natal chart can correspond to this energy. Aquarius is really an energy and a sign that says it's time to look forward. It's time for new. It's time for rejuvenation, right? We need to leave the past behind. Keep in mind that Uranian energy is very much a nervous system activation energy. So you may find that your nervous system is hyped up around this time. I would highly recommend a meditation practices, grounding practices, or any type of somatic or bodywork practice. Yoga, meditation, breath work, sound healing, or dance, or working out, whatever the case may be, anything to get you back in your body, and also grounding your body, eating lots of root vegetables. We need to think outside the box for not only ourselves, but for the collective, for humanity. What is the future looking like, and what do we need to change so that we can better that for the entirety of this population? All right, I think I've kind of rambled on about the general energies of this full moon, so let's dive a little bit deeper, guys. So this is happening, of course, in the third decan of Aquarius. This is a Libra ruled decan or a Venus ruled decan, and this decan is ruled by the Seven of Swords. Now, the Seven of Swords is debatably the sneakiest card in the deck. It is usually a very deceptive energy. I always say it's lying, cheating, stealing. This is trickery, it's deception, it can be shame, it can be acting very impulsively. On a more positive side of the Seven of Swords, this can be thinking very strategically, but you also have to look at the image on the card of the man. He's stealing the swords from his competitor, from his enemy. So he has a fear that is running his mind. It's a card of swords, of air, and he is worried about defeat. He's worried that he's going to lose the battle in some way, shape, or form. So he has to outsmart them, think ahead, and cheat. It's a very cunning, sneaky energy, and it can be also about seeking some sort of attention. In a general sense, this is an energy of trying to get away with something. There's not really an energy to say that he gets away with it, because on the contrary, he actually leaves a sword behind. So he more than likely gets caught and his plan doesn't work out to his benefit. So the fact that he is trying to have some sort of strategy or be resourceful doesn't necessarily work out in his favor. So moral of the story, you need to play fair and play by the rules. Now, this full moon is at 27 degrees, and 27 degrees is a Gemini degree, and Gemini energy is very playful. It's very intellectual. We have a lot of mercurial energy going on around the time of this full moon. So mercurial energy is going to be at an all-time high. We just had the Mars-Jupiter conjunction in Gemini, and Mercury retrograde just retrograded back into Leo, and Mercury is conjunct to the sun and to asteroid Vesta, but we will dive into that in just a moment. So this increases that Gemini mercurial energy. And also, of course, 27 adds up to a 9 in numerology, and 9s in numerology are the ending. It is finishing something out. It is closing something out. It's a very spiritual number, very intuitive number. 9s are, if you're considering Life Path 9, for example, Life Path 9s are the humanitarian. They are the teacher. They are the wise sage. They are here to help humanity in some way. So this humanitarian collective energy, group energy, community energy is very much essential. So this is a full moon that I think is going to be prominent for everyone as a whole, but also individually affecting our lives, no matter if you have heavy fixed sign placements in your chart or not. All right, diving into the aspects, guys. Of course, first and foremost, I want to talk about the T-square with Uranus. This is an exact aspect. Uranus is at 27 degrees of Taurus, and so we have the sun and the moon in opposition for the full moon. Of course, on every full moon, we have an opposition with the sun and the moon. I would like to mention now, we will dive into this energy in a moment, but the sun is conjunct to Mercury at 26 of Leo, and Vesta, which is right there at 27, literally dead conjunct the sun. So this T-squared, to me, there is some form of resistance to collective change and evolution. Now, of course, when we're talking more individually, this can be very much heightened emotional volatility. And this is like emotional reactions to things, especially in regards to change or something that internally you feel some form of resistance to changing something and you react emotionally to that. This is an energy that could reveal hidden or subconscious desires or motivations, things that you didn't know that were buried way deep down in your shadow that just come out of thin air, like electricity. Uranus and Uranian energy is very eccentric and just, it rules lightning and electricity for a reason because it comes out of nowhere. There's no way to really predict exactly what Uranus will do. there's no way to actually predict what this full moon will do or how it will play out, because the Uranian influence is so strong. The ruler of this full moon is Uranus. The big dog in this full moon is Uranus already, and it's in a T-square with the sun and the moon. It's like trying to shock us into gear. It's trying to shock us into recognizing something that needs to change, that needs to be let go of. And it's just electrifying disruptions, to say the least, and to put it plainly. These are things like upheavals, disruptions, things that you never saw coming out of left field. These could have to do with things regarding our emotions, our shadows, our feelings, our individuality, and our authenticity with the sun in Leo, our purpose and our mission with Venus conjunct to the sun in Leo, what brings us love, what brings us joy, and what is our purpose in using what brings us love and joy. We are essentially breaking free of convention, hopefully not from an emotional explosion or an identity crisis. Just be careful of making rash or impulsive decisions. This is not a time for that. Things might come out of left field that you weren't expecting. That's to be expected, if that makes sense. Things that weren't expected should be expected, more or less. But certainly look to see where the Leo Aquarius axis is in your chart and the Scorpio Taurus axis. All right, moving on, guys. So we do have Mercury retrograde, which is conjunct to the sun in Leo, Mercury at 26 and the sun at 27 degrees of Leo, right there with Vesta at 27 as well. And to me, this is really an energy of re-examining ourselves, re-examining what is in our heart. Leo rules the heart chakra. It is Leo season. We're coming to the end of Leo season and about to move into Virgo season. This is really about how we express ourselves and how we express our love for self and for others. There could be an energy of feeling the need to stand up for yourself, to defend yourself. Just make sure that you're doing that from a place of love and not impulsive anger or emotional reaction. This could be an energy of revisiting things, whether it's old friends, old jobs, old projects, old hobbies, whatever the case may be for you, things that really resonate in your heart. This could be a time of revisiting those things and bringing them back to life or integrating them back into your life. We're really reassessing who we are, what brings us confidence, and what brings us a sense of purpose. So essentially, this could be like renewed creativity, renewed authenticity, and renewed passion. Also, of course, we do have Vesta, which is conjunct to the sun as well. And Vesta, asteroid Vesta, is an asteroid that is really the eternal flame. It is the eternal flame of dedication, service, purpose, and our mission to the world. It's an asteroid of hearth, home, and family, but it is the sacred flame. So what lights your flame? This is a very fiery energy, and being conjunct to the sun, it's like shining a light on how we can move forward in our purpose from our heart and what is aligned with our authenticity, what brings us joy, passion, love, enthusiasm, and our zest for life. And how can we use that to be of service to the world? A connection between your identity and between your mission. All right, now moving on to the second T-square. The second T-square is, of course, between Saturn and Venus. So this is happening between Saturn and Venus. Venus, of course, is in Virgo and Saturn is in Pisces, and they are both square to Mars. Mars at 19, Venus at 18 Virgo, and Saturn at 17 Pisces. So it's not dead exact, but it's pretty darn close. Of course, Jupiter is still in conjunction to Mars. It's still in orb at 17 degrees. So that Jupiterian energy in the T-square is still active. So really it's a T-square with Venus and Saturn in opposition, and then with Jupiter and Mars in square to both of them. So when we have Venus and Saturn in opposition, oppositions are already relational aspects. So this can bring up discrepancies in value systems in our relationships. Now, it doesn't just have to be romantic partnerships, although Venus does rule things like love and harmony, but this is harmony in our friendships and our family connections. I do think that those themes could be brought up, especially being the Aquarian full moon. So you could find these shift in value systems or discrepancies in value systems within friend groups or associations or groups that you belong to, collaborations, work partnerships, whatever the case may be. It's going to resonate differently for everybody. Look to see where Virgo and Pisces is in your chart, which houses are ruled by these signs. This can also bring up struggles with our emotional expression. Saturn is a very stern and restrictive energy, right? He's very much like, I always say he's the angry grandfather figure, the angry father figure, but he's there to teach us something. And Venus is a very feminine, very, aesthetically pleasing and wants to enjoy the pleasures in life. But remember that Venus is in detriment in the sign of Virgo. So it already doesn't do very well there. Moral of the story, this can bring a lot of delays and dissatisfaction, discrepancies, and it's kind of a contrast there. So it's almost like our values lie on different ends of the spectrum, and then when they're both squaring Mars and Jupiter, this could be very much explosive anger or reactivity. This amplifies tension and dissatisfaction, irritation that is caused by power struggles. Saturn has a way of bringing up fear, especially when it's in contact to Venus in an opposition. This can bring up things related to fears or fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, things like that. And then we are reacting or trying to overcompensate in some way with the Jupiter and Mars in square to them both. So we may try to overcompensate by like aggressively asserting ourselves or saying something very impulsively without thinking about it. Gemini, the mind, where Jupiter and Mars are. But it's really just a lack of being on the same page. And again, this is also an aspect that can be hard for us to communicate or to share our emotional vulnerabilities or our emotional struggles or desires. It's like Venus wants and desires a intimate relationship, and Saturn desires autonomy and to do the work and to focus on his finances. This can also bring up energies in finance. So don't make impulsive decisions around finance, around your job, or around anything related to money, investments, whatever the case may be for you. Don't make impulsive decisions around those types of things around this full moon. Just don't. We need to remember to emotionally regulate ourselves. And I'm not saying don't be assertive, but just remember to stay grounded and assert yourself respectfully. There is a need for balance whenever we're talking about an opposition, whether we're talking about two planets in opposition or just the signs. They are polarity for a reason. They're two sides of the same coin. So you can find a middle ground. You just have to look for it. Also keep in mind when we're talking about oppositions, they are in compatible elements. So we have Saturn in Pisces, which is in a water sign, and then we have Venus in Virgo, which is an earth sign. Water and earth usually does pretty well together. They can come to a middle ground. What makes this even more tricky is that they are both in square to Jupiter and Mars in Gemini. Yes, they are all mutable signs, but Gemini is a masculine air sign. So if you're trying to over-intellectualize the discrepancies or the shift in values or the disagreement or whatever the case may be, if you're trying to over-intellectualize it or overcompensate something with your mind, that may not be how you find the answer. Yes, expressing yourself is going to be helpful and may help solve some of the issues, but remembering those general Virgo and Pisces themes are going to help you get out of this polarity point of Saturn and Venus. Now, of course, we've already been talking about the Mars and Jupiter conjunction. The conjunction is over. Mars is now at 19. Jupiter is still at 17, but this energy is still ongoing. But what makes this even more intense is that Jupiter is in square to Saturn, and Jupiter in Gemini in square to Saturn in Pisces. It's an interesting energy, and they're both, technically Jupiter isn't an outer planet, but it moves fairly slowly, only moving through a sign once a year. So this is going to be a longer lasting aspect. And this is very much like a push-pull effect. When we're talking about the Jupiter and Mars conjunction in Gemini, it's very much about like your goals. You're very much motivated to do something. Jupiter expands everything it touches. That said, Jupiter is not all positive energy. I think that pop astrology has really portrayed Jupiter to be all, perfect and holier than thou, and that is not the case. He can overinflate things. Now, Saturn, on the other hand, is very restrictive and very much about the long term. He doesn't want instant gratification. He condenses things where Saturn expands things. So there's this push-pull effect between wanting to do something or desiring to do something, but feeling held back or restricted from Saturn. And this could come from a very subconscious or shadow place being in Pisces. These are outer realms, the ethereal realms. So you might not be able to put your finger on where this restriction is coming from, but I can assure you that it's Saturn. So for more information on this, check out Pisces in your birth chart, which house is ruled by Pisces. And if you want even further information, you can always book a personal reading with me. But all that said, guys, this is actually a pretty revolutionary and beautiful full moon. I don't mean to scare you with all the negative energy, but the T-squares and the squares, I just want you guys to know that if we didn't have squares in astrology, we really would not grow. So I want you to take that how you will. Sit with that, meditate with that. Yes, squares can be challenging, but if we didn't have squares, like if you were to look at a chart that had no squares in it, it would be pretty darn boring. And if you didn't have squares in your birth chart, you probably live a pretty boring life, to be honest with you. No offense to those of you that don't have squares in your birth chart, but if you didn't have squares and oppositions, life would be pretty dull. Just remember that this is a huge collective shift, and we are shifting at a rapid rate. Now, I can't really put my finger on how that will play out exactly, just because this is Uranian energy, and you cannot pinpoint Uranian energy. You just can't. Aquarius energy, you can't pinpoint either. I would say that Uranus being in the sign of Taurus, financial markets could take a 180, or, food production. Taurus is a sign about food, farming, and like the land. It's very earthy, the most earthy to say of the earth signs, but this could be in food, agriculture, farming. It could be in finance. Of course, it could have to do on a more personal level with relationships, being Taurus is ruled by Venus. Needless to say, this could play out in a million different ways, but you need to let go of the resistance. Be careful with emotional volatility, impulsive decisions, and always remembering to come back to the heart. We are still in Leo season, remembering to come back to the heart. Think of the bigger picture, think of the future, where you want yourself to be in the future, how you want things to look. Think of the group, think of the community, and think of the collective. Think of the longer vision. How do you fit into that vision, and what role do you play? But that is all I have for you guys. For personal readings, you can click the link in the description box below or the pinned comment. We are doing a free tarot reading giveaway this month, so if you're interested in that, go check out my tarot reading videos. But leave a comment down below, guys. Let me know where this Aquarius full moon is happening in your chart, which houses is happening for you, and how is it affecting you personally. I would really love to know. Happy full moon in Aquarius, my loves. I will see you next time. Bye.